Since the beginning, Chuck Norris has never been the type of person who talks more than he acts. He made a name for himself as a man who kept his cool, was polite, and didn't share his personal thoughts. Whether he was roundhouse kicking bad guys on Walker, Texas Ranger, or breaking boards in real life, he wasn't the type of person to get excited about Hollywood drama. Things have changed lately though. Chuck finally broke his silence in a dramatic and tearful moment, and what he said shocked everyone. He spoke out against 5 stars he hates. For the first time in history, the man is known for keeping things businesslike, so no one would have thought this of him. But maybe that's what makes it even more important. Chuck thought it was time to clear the air after decades of quiet. That being said, what finally made the famous martial artist speak out? Who were these people who made him so angry? Early life and work. His birthday is March 10, 1940, and he was born in Ryan, Oklahoma. Wilma, his mother, was Irish, and Ray D. Norris, his father, was Cherokee. Ray worked at many places. He had been in World War II, and worked as a mechanic and bus and truck driver. Chuck was the main brother of 3. Wolland, his younger brother, once told Chuck that he wouldn't make it past age 27. Sad to say, that was right when Wolland died in 1970, during the Vietnam War. Chuck's parents split up when he was 16. He went to Prairie Village, Kansas, with his mum and brothers, and then to Torrance, California. Chuck did not have a good life. He said he was quiet, not very athletic, and an average student. His dad wasn't around very often. Things were even worse at home when he went on drinking binges. All of this made Chuck very shy when he was younger. Chuck joined the U.S. Air Force in 1958 and was sent to South Korea. It was there that he got the name Chuck and learned Temsudo, a type of martial arts. He worked hard and earned a black belt in the end. When he got back to the U.S., he kept working for the Air Force in California. Eventually, he opened a martial arts school while he waited to be hired by the police. At first, Chuck wasn't the best at martial arts events. At first, he lost a few fights, but he kept going. In 1967, he started winning big events and even beat famous players like Joe Louis. He also opened more karate schools and taught famous people like Donny Osmond, Steve McQueen, and Bob Barker. Chuck's last loss in a martial arts match happened in 1968. He also won the middleweight karate tournament that same year and kept it for 6 years in a row. He finally stopped competing without losing, and he became good friends with Bruce Lee, who he met while participating. Chuck became famous when he played the main bad guy in Bruce Lee's hit movie, Way of the Dragon, in 1972. The movie did very well at the box office, and made Chuck famous. After that he got more movie parts, and started acting school after friend Steve McQueen told him to do so. One of his big breaks as a major actor came in 1977 with Breaker Breaker. The next was 1978 with Good Guys Wear Black. The movie, which was made on a very small budget, made Chuck the first big martial arts movie star in America, and made millions of dollars. His movies stood out because, unlike the famous Hong Kong kung fu movies of the time, they were set in the US and had American plots. In the 1979 movie, A Force of One, Chuck Norris played a karate champion who helps the cops with a case. He worked on this movie while marketing his last movie, Good Guys Wear Black. Initially, no company was interested in it, but it went on to make $20 million. He put out The Octagon in 1980, where he had to stop ninja train attackers. Finally, producers were interested this time, and it made almost $19 million. He was in An Eye for an Eye the next year, and in 1982, he had a scary action role in Silent Rage, which was his first big studio movie, and was distributed by Columbia Pictures. In the same year that Forced Vengeance came out, MGM offered him a 3-film deal. Even though Norris wasn't happy with the creative direction, and ended the deal in 1983. His role as a tough Texas Ranger in Lone Wolf McQuade was a huge hit. Some critics loved it so much that they said it reminded them of old spaghetti westerns. Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 stars and said that Norris's role was iconic. Around this time, Norris also put out a fitness book and a computer game called Chuck Norris Superkicks. After that, he broke out into the general market. In the 1984 movie Missing in Action, he played Colonel James Brown, a soldier in Vietnam who freed PS. It became a huge hit, and was based on the life of his late brother, who died in the Vietnam War. In 1985, Norris played the lead role in Code of Silence, which showed more emotional depth. It was one of his best parts, and it was the biggest hit at the box office on its first weekend. He kept having success with movies like Missing in Action 2 and Invasion USA in 1986. He worked with Lee Marvin on another hit movie called Delta Force. In that same year, he even did his own speech in a cartoon called Karate Commandos. He wrote a best-selling book about self-improvement and his personal life with another person in 1987. He married Diane K. Holchick, his high school sweetheart. In December 1958, Chuck was 18 years old, and she was 17 when they got married. They met for the first time in 1956 while they were both in school in Torrance, California. In 1962, they had their first child, a son. Chuck had a girl as his second child. The next year from a short affair while they were married. They then had a second boy, Eric, in 1964. Chuck and Diane split up after 30 years of marriage. In 1988, while he was filming Delta Force 2, they broke up. In 1989, they got a divorce. After many years, on November 28, 1998, Chuck got married again, and fell in love with Gina O'Kelly, who used to be a model, and was 23 years younger than him. After her divorce, Gina had 2 kids with her ex-boyfriend. On August 30, 2001, she and Chuck had twins. In 2004, Chuck told a very personal story, in an appearance with Entertainment Tonight. He said that he hadn't seen his daughter from his first relationship since she was 26 years old. She found out he was her father when she was only 16, but they didn't meet and get to know each other until she wrote him a sad letter in 1990. Right after he divorced Diane. Chuck Norris has been a grandpa since 2017. He has 13 grandchildren now. His path through his family and love life was, at best, bumpy, but he always made an effort to stay in touch and take responsibility for his political goals. Chuck Norris says he is a conservative and a strong supporter of Republican ideas. He has even written for the far-right website WorldNet Daily. Over the years, he has never been afraid to say what he thinks about politics. Back then, in the 1980s, after his movie Missing in Action came out, Chuck said he really liked President Ronald Reagan. He said that he didn't care so much about political parties, and liked Reagan's courage and strong leadership. He cared more about the person. Chuck talked about terrorism while he was filming Delta Force. He said that the US was being too easy on terrorists, and that they could one day attack the US or Canada. In 2007, Chuck showed his support for the troops by going to Iraq to see us soldiers. He supported Republican Mike Huckabee over John McCain the next year in the 2008 presidential race, and said McCain was too old for the job. In the end though, he backed McCain, mostly because he liked Sarah Palin as a vice presidential candidate. Chuck also backed California's Proposition 8 in 2008, which made it illegal for people of the same gender to get married. He thought that people were not honoring the vote. In 2009, he questioned where President Barack Obama was born, and asked him to show his birth certificate to put an end to the claims. He kept giving his strong opinions, writing about Sharia law in the US, and blaming the Obama government for trying to change the Boy Scouts rules. He backed many Republican candidates over the years, including Ron Paul, Newt Gingrich, Mitt Romney, and Ted Cruz. He also backed politicians who were involved in scandal, like Roy Moore and Benjamin Netanyahu, who is now the Prime Minister of Israel. In 2019, Chuck teamed up with gunmaker Glock, which made some of his fans mad because school killings were on the rise. In 2021, he supported the attempt to remove Governor Gavin Newsom from office in California and chose talk show host Larry Elder as a replacement. Chuck has always been outspoken and stuck to his beliefs, even when they were disliked. Not in favor of same-sex marriage. In 2008, Chuck Norris openly supported Proposition 8, a ballot measure in California that would have banned same-sex marriage in the state. When he publicly supported the proposal to legally define marriage as a union between a man and a woman, it caused a lot of trouble and criticism from LGBTQ+ groups and supporters. To answer his critics, Norris said that the people who voted for Proposition 8 were not trying to take away anyone's rights, but rather to keep some views about the limits of marriage. He said that protests against passing the proposition were like anarchy, and that people who were against it were just protecting their honest views. Some people also said that Norris's support for the plan made LGBTQ+ people feel even less welcome, and kept up racist attitudes. There are big differences in how people think about marriage equality. And the story showed how public figures can change how people think about these issues. Even though he was criticized, Norris stood his ground and backed Proposition 8 with other religious and right groups. In 2010, the plan was found to be unconstitutional, but the problems it caused showed how hard people are still fighting for LGBTQ+ rights and acceptance in the US. Norris's involvement in the Proposition 8 scandal is still a great example of how support from famous people can change the way people talk about politics and society, especially when it comes to civil rights and equality. Walker, Texas Ranger, has been criticized. The TV show Walker, Texas Ranger, which starred Chuck Norris and ran from 1993 to 2001, was very famous because of its action scenes and portrayal of justice. People also didn't like how it portrayed violence and the cops. Some critics said the show made vigilantism and using too much force seem cool. A review from 1993 talked about a scene in which Walker gives a suspect who is moaning that he is not being read his Miranda rights a jaw-breaking kick to silence him. The reviewer suggested that showing police and justice in this way might change how people feel about them in real life. A 1995 UCLA study also said that the show had long, violent hand-to-hand fight scenes, which made people worry about how it would affect younger viewers. Norris supported the show's content by saying that the action was set in a moral situation. There's a lot of action, but it's all done with a moral background, he said. Even though it caused a lot of trouble, Walker Texas Ranger kept a large audience, which suggests that many people related to its ideals of justice and revenge. The show's popularity shows that, even though it got bad reviews, it satisfied a desire for simple stories about good beating evil. And when he was used as the most dangerous person on TV in an ABC special, Chuck Norris felt lied to about what the show was really about. Early in 2005, a web trend called Chuck Norris Facts went popular. People have been making fun of Chuck Norris's toughness since the 1980s. But it wasn't until the internet that these facts really caught on. It started in the Something Awful boards, where people were making fun of actor Vin Diesel after his movie, The Pacifier, came out. Soon after, everyone was talking about Chuck Norris, and bad jokes about how tough and strong he was became the new trend. Many of the jokes made Norris seem almost magical. They were like the Saturday Night Live sketch, where Bill Brossi did the same thing over and over again. They were also a reference to Chuck Norris jokes from Late Night with Conan O'Brien, where Norris's role in Walker, Texas Ranger, was often passed off as funny. Over-the-top jokes became a big part of pop culture very quickly. A comic named Ian Spector is often called the father of Chuck Norris facts. Spector was one of the first movies to make online tools that let people make up their own Chuck Norris facts. Famous Spector even wrote books about these facts. Like The Truth About Chuck Norris, 400 Facts About the World's Greatest Person, 2007, and Chuck Norris vs. Mr. T, 400 Facts About the Baddest Guys Ever, 2008. A Matavac answer came from Chuck Norris to the jokes. He said on his official website that some of the facts were funny, and asked everyone not to take them too seriously. It was also his hope that the jokes would make people want to learn more about him, especially the stories in his books. Jokes were made fun of again by Norris in a piece he wrote for WorldNet Daily in 2006. This time, he chose to be humble, which took the focus off of how tough he was, and put it on God and Jesus Christ. Some internet jokes didn't always agree with Norris though. The publisher of The Truth About Chuck Norris was sued by him in December 2007. Because he said the book violated his brand rights and privacy. In 2008, he dropped the suit. Even though the movie got mixed reviews, Chuck Norris quickly became a joke star on the internet. He went ahead and released the official Chuck Norris fact book in 2009. It was co-written with his official approval. Although many years had passed, his facts kept showing up in movies and ads. One of the most well-known jokes is seen in the 2012 movie The Expendables 2. There was a king snake that bit Chuck Norris, but it died after 5 days of pain. The trend kept going even in 2017, when a United Healthcare ad with Norris in it aired. Two guys at a diner started making jokes about how tough he was supposed to be. One of them said, "Chuck Norris wears a hat to hide the sun behind him." Norris's online fame is still strong today, as shown by Suits the drug is being given to his wife, Gina Norris, who is married to actor Chuck Norris, sued several companies in 2012, saying that they poisoned her with GBCA gadolinium-based contrast agents, which are used in MRI scans. Her doctor told her that after 3 MRIs in 8 days, she started having serious health problems like a racing heart and intense burning all over her body. She went to the hospital several times, but her situation did not get better. It took her all the way to China to look for different kinds of treatments, like chelation therapy and stem cell treatments. Even though her health got better in some ways, she still has cramps in her hands and terrible back pain. Gina thought she was broken, and she blamed the companies for not telling her about the dangers of the contrast agents. Gadolinium is a heavy metal that can be bad for you if too much of it builds up in your body. MRI contrast dyes are usually made so that this doesn't happen. They do this by adding a chelating agent to the gadolinium that makes it easier for the body to get rid of it through pee. In 1988, GBCAs were used for the first time in MRI scans. Researchers have found that the body may not always be able to get rid of all the gadolinium. It can build up in places like the brain, bones, and kidneys, even in people whose kidneys work normally. The FDA issued a warning in 2015 about the risk of too much gadolinium building up in the brain. The FDA later said that there isn't enough evidence to show that this growth is harmful to health. But some people are still worried about the idea that there might be something in the brain besides thoughts. Researchers have found that contrast drugs may cause problems in both animals and people, such as kidney failure, pancreatitis, and neurological problems. Even though they come with risks, GBCAs can still be very helpful in medical imaging, helping doctors find problems in the body that would be hard to find any other way. But Gina Norris's lawsuit brings attention to the possible risks of these contrast agents. It could lead to more studies, or even more people making similar complaints. The outcome of Gina Norris's lawsuit is still unknown, but it may bring attention to the possible risks of GBCA and lead to more study into their safety. We will have to wait and see if more people start to talk about their problems. Misidentification of a Capitol fight. In January 2021, right after the riot in the US Capitol, a picture went viral on the internet. It showed a person who looked a lot like Chuck Norris as part of the crowd that was storming the city. There were a lot of reports on the internet that the action star had joined the rioters, but Chuck Norris quickly put an end to them. He told everyone on Twitter, "I just recently learned that there was a person who looked like Chuck Norris at the riots in the DC Capitol. It wasn't me, and I wasn't there. There is no room for violence in our world. I support law and order, and always will." Eric Kitzer, his boss, also came forward to help him. He said Chuck wasn't in Washington, D.C. that day. He was actually at home with his family on their ranch in Texas. Kitzer joked that the man in the picture was much more attractive, which was clearly an attempt to calm things down. Later, the man in the picture, who was hiding, was found to not be Norris at all. But the harm was already done at that point. The picture had already been shared on and off on social media, which led to all kinds of crazy theories. People often get their identities mixed up, which happens a lot these days, thanks to technology. This case shows how easy it is for fake news to spread on the internet, especially when a famous person is involved. With so many pictures and decisions going viral on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, it's more important than ever to check the facts before jumping to conclusions. People can be wrongly accused of anything, even the famous Chuck Norris. The whole thing is a warning. It's not always true what you see on the internet. In times like these, it can help a lot to check the facts. Let's talk about the stars that Chuck Norris doesn't like at all. Chuck Norris and Jean-Claude Van Damme. Before Jean-Claude Van Damme became a well-known actor in Hollywood, the Belgian-born performer had a long way to go. He also had an interesting link to Chuck Norris. In the 1980s, Van Damme was another young star-aspiring person with big eyes who lived in Los Angeles. He ran a gym in Brussels and had some success as a model and bodybuilder. Then he got on a plane for Hollywood. Like many artists who are having a hard time, he did odd jobs to make money. He worked as a taxi driver, a waiter, and even in some short pictures. One of his first parts was as a gay karate man in the 1984 movie Monaco Forever. In the same year, he was also in the breakdancing movie Break-In. He did get some strange jobs though. One of them was as a bouncer at a bar called Woody's Wharf, which was run by the famous martial artist Chuck Norris. Van Damme laughed about the experience in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter in 2019. He said that Americans were big people, and that he was lucky that he had never had to fight anyone in real life. Instead, he said that his kindness and charm kept the peace. "I was a good schmoozer and sympathetic, and nothing bad happened. They got along well at first, but stories later said that over the years, things got worse between them. It was said that these two stars might work together on a movie in the early 1990s. That said, it didn't go through because of creative differences. Later, in 2001, Norris is said to have criticized Van Damme's work ethic and control at a martial arts show in Texas, calling him undisciplined. No matter how tense things were, both guys became huge action stars. Even though they never worked together on screen, the story of how they met is an interesting look behind the scenes at the best martial arts movies ever made. Bruce Willis and Steven Seagal. Between the late 1980s and early 1990s, martial arts star Steven Seagal got into a big fight with Chuck Norris and other big names in the martial arts world. The fight began when Seagal said mean things about Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris, saying that American martial artists were not real. Another thing he said was that he would fight anyone who disagreed with him. Bob Wall, who was friends with both Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris, reacted by getting together a group of 12 well-known martial artists, called the Dirty Dozen. Some of these well-known names were Gene Leal, Bill Wallace, and Benny Urquhart. They told Seagal straight out that he had to back up what he said in a real fight. Seagal refused to accept the offer, even though it was made in public. Some martial artists thought the dare was too much, while others thought it was the right thing to do in response to Seagal's comments. In martial arts, the episode showed how important it is to be honest and respectful. The rumored fights never happened, but the event is still an important part of martial arts history because it shows how ready the community is to stand up for its beliefs. They are Alec Baldwin and Chuck Norris. Even though both Chuck Norris and Alec Baldwin are famous actors, they couldn't be more different when it comes to politics, and it shows. As a strong Republican, Chuck Norris is well known. He has been very clear about his political views over the years, supporting Republicans like Mike Huckabee, Mitt Romney, and Donald Trump. He has spoken out, written blogs, and even recorded videos telling people to return to what he calls traditional values. It doesn't sit well with him when those ideas are made fun of on national TV, especially in a funny way. That's where Alec Baldwin comes in. Baldwin, a famous actor on the left, played Donald Trump on Saturday Night Live for a few years, which made a lot of Republicans mad. People laughed at his silly take, which included over-the-top hand gestures and over-the-top face expressions. But people who agree with Trump or conservative ideas didn't like it. Chuck Norris was one of these people. In a 2017 blog post, Norris didn't name Baldwin, but he did talk about how he felt about Hollywood stars making fun of right leaders. He called them Hollywood elites who make fun of American ideals and warned that these kinds of images can hurt the country's morals and unity. Because Baldwin's appearances on Saturday Night Live were such a big deal at the time, many people connected this comment to those shows. Even though Baldwin hasn't said anything about Norris's words, the fight between the two shows how divided Hollywood is becoming, where political views fight along with movie scripts. It's a classic case of two people on opposite sides of a societal war. They are Shia LaBeouf and Chuck Norris. Both Chuck Norris and Shia LaBeouf are very different in Hollywood. And it was said that their short-term working relationship didn't go as planned. In the late 2010s, both performers were said to have been in a commercial show, although the specifics of the plan are unknown. Reports say that Chuck Norris wasn't happy with Shia LaBeouf's attitude at the start. Insiders said that LaBeouf's behavior was also seen as rude. This might be because he dressed in a flashy way or acted very intensely. Norris is known for being careful and efficient, so it's said that he didn't mind the lack of respect. Then, in 2020, Chuck wrote something on Facebook. That made people think even more things. The post, which has since been pulled, said, "Fame without discipline is chaos." Norris never named Labou, but fans and the media thought the quote was about their past fight. Many people thought Chuck's post was a subtle jab at Labou, because he had been in the news several times for his strange behavior and public scandals, such as legal problems and angry outbursts. Chuck Norris has long pushed the ideals of respect, hard work, and self-control, which he sees as very important to life in general, not just martial arts. On the other hand, Shia has made a name for himself as unexpected and emotionally open, both on and off screen. Maybe the fact that they seem to be at odds with each other is to blame for their very different work ethic and attitudes. Both stars haven't talked about what happened in public since then, but the rumored feud is a reminder of how differences in personality and generation can cause problems in the company. If you liked this in-depth look at Chuck Norris's bad guys in Hollywood, please click the like button and leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, so you never miss a movie. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.